Good morning and welcome back. This is Dusty with Total Apex. And with me, I have my bald headed buddy, Tommy Harvey. What's going on, Tommy? It's been a while since we've done a podcast, man.
Man, we were off screen. And you had that intro music going on. I was over here yeeting like Jay Uso.
I know, man. It's been crazy, though, man. Total Apex has just gone through so many changes over the past like 3 to 4 months, man. We are on a trajectory like ain't nobody's business. We've opened up some new sites. We've brought in a lot of valuable pieces to the team. And, I love my live broadcasts. So, but you know what I don't love
That
is
sweatshirt,
the,
Jesus,
hey, you leave my Rafiki alone, man. Hakuna Matata, man. Hakuna Matata.
it's colorful.
But I can say the same thing for your Cowboys. They need a Hakuna Matata. Because I tell you what,
They need something.
they they are absolutely horrible this year. I mean, you would have, but I want you to touch base on that though, Tommy, because we're just going to jump right into it, man. They took another L this weekend,
Mhm.
and after signing Dak, I mean, I'm not. I mean, the defense ain't living up to expectations. The offense isn't producing. Is there a sense of complacency now with Dak that he's got that contract? I mean, the Cowboys now the fans are wanting Jerry Jones to sell.
Fans
What's
have
your
been
take on this?
fans have been wanting Jerry Jones to sell for 25 years. So I mean, that's nothing new. But um, as far as Dak goes, I don't think there's a sense of complacency there. I think there's a lack of playmakers around him. Um, Jerry Jones made the comment in the offseason that they were going to go all in, but they didn't go all in on anything. They waited till the very last minute to give CD Lamb and Dak their contract extensions. They didn't draft a running back like they needed to. They didn't go out and address it in free agency the way they needed to. They only brought in a washed Ezekiel Elliott, and then they brought in Dalvin Cook, who's sitting on their practice squad. Neither one of them have been good in 2 years. So when you go and you look at their offense, it's Dak and CeeDee Lamb, but then they double CeeDee Lamb, and then what else do you have?
I mean, let's put that into
Jake Ferguson is a
let's
decent Jake Ferguson is a decent tight end, but outside of that, they have no number two wide receiver. Their offensive line has been beat to crap over the last couple of years, and they've done a minimal job at addressing it. So,
well, let's put this into perspective because the Cowboys defense as of the past couple seasons has been the backbone of this team.
right.
But
That's what happens when
they
you lose
just
Dan
got
Quinn. They lost Dan Quinn in the offseason to Commanders. He's their new head coach.
yeah.
So you bring in a new defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer, and I've never thought Mike Zimmer was a great defensive coordinator, and it's kind of showing right now. They can't stop anybody. The last two first halves they've gotten completely blown out.
Mm.
I mean, gave up 40 plus points to the Saints. They were down 28-6 yesterday. They just couldn't stop anybody. And then, the Ravens kind of shot themselves in the foot yesterday by just getting way too conservative in allowing Dallas to come back in that fourth quarter.
Well, when you think about how the Ravens won the game, they won the game on the ground. They
Yeah.
outrushed Dallas 274-51.
Well,
Now, if I
again,
am
Dallas has no running game. They have
they
no
don't.
trustful running backs. They're going out
Nope.
there with Ezekiel Elliott, who hasn't had anything in 2 to 3 years at this point. And Rico Dowdle, who, let's face it, he's a low end NFL running back.
Well, Dowdle put up 32 of those 51 yards, and he
Okay,
had 8
32
carries.
yards
So I
still
mean,
isn't good.
you're talking 4 yards per carry. That ain't gonna get the job done.
No,
But my biggest question to you though is are you raising the red alarm right now in Dallas? I personally I am because I mean you got the doors blown off by New Orleans. The offense has been stagnant. Like if it ain't coming through the air, I mean, you're not getting it done on the ground.
Well, I've been sounding the alarm since the end of last season, since they got blown out in the playoffs by Green Bay.
Yeah.
For one, they they have never been able to prove consistency in the playoffs at all. So
Yeah.
they kind of had the MO of being good in the regular season and then kind of crapping the bed in the playoffs. That
Yeah.
It's been that way since '95.
I
So
just don't think and Cowboy fans, eat your hearts out here, but let's be real. I don't see Jerry Jones as the owner taking the Cowboys to another Super
well,
Bowl. I just don't see it happening.
I've made this comparison with several people. Jerry Jones is basically Vince McMahon. Nothing is ever going
Yeah.
to change until he's gone, and
Yes.
that kind of proved that proved to be the case in the WWE. Nothing changed until Vince McMahon was gone. Nothing is
So
going
I
to
got to
change
take
in
a second.
Dallas
We got
until
some
Jerry Jones
comments,
is gone.
bro. I got some comments. First off, good morning to Brett McDurphy and Vince Penzabini. Thanks for joining the show. And here's a question from Go Bills podcast. Deontay Johnson may be an option for Dallas. Is that a move that you would see as a viable option? I mean, let's face it, Brandon Cooks is in the twilight of his career here. And CD Lamb, everybody in the league knows who Dak's going to. And you alluded to the Jake Ferguson. Okay. So Jake Ferguson is a subpar. There's a reason, a subpar tight end.
He's not
And let's be
subpar.
real. Hold on now. There's a reason why
Ferguson's an
people
above
in the
average
fan.
tight end. He's an above average tight end. Problem is, your tight end can't be your number 2 target unless he's Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta. That's just
Well,
I mean,
but there's a reason why fantasy fans and players alike call Jake Ferguson Turd Ferguson. I mean, because you don't know what version of Jake Ferguson you're going to get. Sometimes he comes out, but I'm not going to spend too much time on the Cowboys, but I think in that NFC East, as sad as it is to say, I could easily see them finishing third or even fourth in that division. I just the Giants are going to finish last, but it's dependent on how the Giants will finish fourth. But I think it's going to be a toss up between the Commanders and the Cowboys of who takes that number 2 spot in the NFC East.
And I said that all season. I said that all off season after Washington did what they did by hiring Dan Quinn to be their head coach, and by what they did in free agency and through the draft. They brought in a ton of guys on defense, Frankie Louvu included, who was one of the better linebackers in the entire NFL. Then they went in and traded for Austin Eckler, who at this point in his career is not a frontline NFL running back, but he can still be productive in that role behind Brian Robinson. And then they drafted Jaden Daniels, who is a really good dual threat quarterback if he can stay healthy. I have questions if he can stay healthy or not with the way he plays and that frame he's got. But as far as the Cowboys go, with you've mentioned Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson could be okay there. I just don't know what they can do to afford going and getting him. They don't really have. I mean, unless Carolina is okay with accepting a 4th round draft pick for him, which I don't
think it comes down to the compensation. I think that at this point, with all of the playmakers that Dallas has, I don't think Deontay Johnson is a viable option, because he's going to get to a point where if he does move to a better team and he's able to boost them numbers, he's going to want more money. And right now, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, and some of these other guys are going to take a little bit more precedence. Yeah. Yes, they're going to take precedence over a wide receiver from the University of Toledo and Deontay Johnson.
Well, and not only that, but Jerry Jones even made the comment yesterday after the game about why they didn't sign Derrick Henry in the offseason, and they said he was too expensive. So how are they going to justify going and getting somebody else who is going to want more money on top of that? So
I think that they're paying too much money on a few players, and
they're paying
I
too
know that offensive line is loaded too now.
well,
That
they're paying too
offensive
much money
line's
for
got a
Zeke.
lot of salary.
They're paying too much money for Zeke. For one, they still owed him over $6 million a year after they released him. So they're still paying him this $6 million a year from when they had him previously, on top of the $3 million they're paying him this year. So whenever you're paying close to $10 million a year for a washed running back, you don't really
Yeah.
have a whole lot to go out and spend on anything else.
All right. So on my 41st birthday, Thursday night football, the Jets were able to get it done against the Patriots 24-3. But I'm calling bull crap. I'm gonna watch my mouth. It's a new day, but I call BS, and I'm gonna tell you
We'll see
why.
how long that lasts.
There are videos circulating of Robert Saleh trying to give a hug to Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers sort of snubbed him and had some rude comments to state. Do you think that there's trouble in paradise already at MetLife for Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh?
No, I kind of heard the comments afterwards, and kind of, are you referring to the kind of push away?
Yeah, yeah.
Aaron Rodgers kind of made the comment that that's kind of Robert Saleh's go-to move is kind of the push away. So I don't think there's any disrespect meant there. I think it's kind of the just kind of the bro way that they kind of congratulate each other there. But I do think that they need to really dive into their running game, because those two running backs they have there are studs, man. Brees Hall, we already knew what Brees Hall was, and people who follow college football know what Braylon Allen was, and were perplexed as to why he fell to the 5th round.
Yep.
Especially with running back needy teams like the Dallas Cowboys, who should have picked him up in the 3rd. So
it goes back to what I said, though. I mean,
New York has tons of weapons at Aaron Rodgers' disposal, and they should challenge the Bills for the AFC East, especially with that defense.
And then, thanks to the smart play of Devin Singletary, who went down at the 1-yard line, the Giants were able to hold off the Browns 21-15 in a very ugly game. The Eagles defeated the Saints 15-12. And in a shocker, here's one of my shockers of the year. The Texans got dominated by the Minnesota Vikings 34-7. Now, I want you to put this into perspective for us, Tommy, because the Vikings have come out of nowhere to start the season. They lose J.J. McCarthy, and they bring in old reliable with Sam Darnold, who's, a lot of people don't give him credit, but when he was in New York and got drafted by New York, he was in a very, very bad situation. It was nothing to do with his ability, but when you don't have any receivers and your head coach was Adam Gase, okay, we've got problems. But now you look at what he's doing now.
Well, the good thing with Darnold is that he was in a bad situation with the Jets, went to another bad situation with Carolina.
Yep.
And then he finally went to a good one in San Francisco and actually learned how to play quarterback in the NFL, sitting behind Brock Purdy. So, I mean, maybe we are getting what we thought Sam Darnold could have been coming out of college.
He could be a late bloomer like Carson Palmer. I mean, think about what Carson did. Carson Palmer and even Kurt Warner didn't really hit their stride until later in their careers.
Well, I'm not going to go as far as saying that he's not.
No, but I'm just saying. But when you think about the weapons that I am not in a position to state that I'm all in with the Vikings coming out that NFC North yet, because I think Detroit is playing really well. and the Packers, which we'll touch on both of those here in a little bit. But what I will say is that Sam Darnold is probably in his best position to win since joining the NFL. You've got the best wide receiver in Justin Jefferson.
Well,
You've got probably one
you
of the
also
top.
you also may have one of the best young. You may have the best young head coach in the league. Also,
Yes, yes. And then you throw in, he's got one of the better tight ends with TJ Hawkinson. He does have a viable,
yeah.
yeah, but he also has Jordan Addison, who's a viable WR2. And then you throw in the fact that they've got a veteran running back that still has some juice in the tank in Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team, and the offensive line, there was a lot of skepticism coming into the season about that Minnesota offensive line, but they have held up fairly decent to start the season. And then they just, who was, some people consider the Texans one of the favorites in the AFC to come out. They just shut them down 34-7.
Yeah, and the Vikings have done a good job with getting after the quarterback so far this year. They weren't expected to have a very good.
That right there says it all. That says it all.
Yeah,
right there.
But they weren't expected to have a very good pass rush coming into the season, and they've proven that they do so far. Yes. But as far as yesterday goes, they didn't have Addison. They won't have Hawkinson until late in the season. So right now they're operating with just Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones, and Sam Darnold's doing what he needs to do in order to keep them winning.
And then the Broncos were able to get it done yesterday, 26-7 against the Bucs. In a shocker for me.
That was a shocker. Yeah.
Yes, that was. I did not anticipate that. But Bo Nix is starting to come on a little bit there in Denver. And I don't think people are really giving him credit because of his age. But I really thought coming out of that draft that the Broncos did get a good quarterback considering where they drafted him.
If only he had any targets to throw the ball.
Yeah, and he's another Sam Darnold. He's going into a bad situation. He has a good coach in Peyton, but he ain't got no weapons.
Right. I mean, he's got Cortland Sutton, but other than that, I mean, Marvin Mims has kind of proven to be kind of a nothing.
Energy prone. They got rid of Tim Patrick.
Yeah, Tim Patrick's not there anymore. Not like Tim Patrick has been anything over the last couple of years since he's been injured anyway.
Injuries. Yeah.
They don't really have much of a running game either. So it's almost like they're doing it with with the broken mirrors on offense because, having a rookie quarterback with limited weapons to utilize, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up. But yesterday was a good win for them.
Now, in a shocker for me, okay. Now, I want to preface this by saying I want to know what your thoughts are on this team, considering everything that's transpired. Yesterday, the Packers blew the doors off of Tennessee 30-14 with a backup quarterback, Malik Willis, who has started his career in Green Bay 2-0, and his proficiency and his turnovers have been limited under LaFleur. Now, I want to put this into perspective because that Green Bay defense is ultimately the reason why they won that game. They tallied 8 sacks, and they held Tony Pollard to a measly 6 carries for only 14 yards. Now, on the other side, it was Malik Willis who led the Packers in rushing with 6 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown. Now, this is without Jordan Love. Like, Jordan Love is not a runner, but now they've added a Malik Willis who, if I as a Packers fan, Tommy, should I be excited about the return of Jordan Love? We're going to have a 2-headed monster.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be excited about the return of Jordan Love just because he's your franchise quarterback. Don't
Yes.
don't buy into the excitement of what Malik Willis has been the last 2 games for you. His career leading up to this point with the Titans was miserable.
Yeah.
Um, again,
But again,
it was with the
piss poor
Titans,
coaching. It was piss
right?
poor coaching.
Right. But again, don't buy into the Malik Willis hype.
Okay.
He is basically what Josh Dobbs was at the beginning of last year. Remember when everybody was buying into Josh Dobbs
And
last
at
year?
this point, as a Packers fan, I'll take it. Look, we've gotten 2 wins out of him.
You've gotten two
And
wins. You've gotten 2 wins, and you're expecting your star franchise quarterback here within the
to be
next
back
to
a
be
week
back
or 2.
either this week or next week, right?
Yep.
So be happy as to what you've gotten from Malik Willis so far. Don't expect it. Don't expect that moving forward from him, though.
All right. So now, and I'm going to touch base on this team because it is from the NFC North. But if you remember back, Tommy, I called a lot of stuff regarding Caleb Williams, and everything that I said has come true. If you remember correctly, when we knew that Chicago was going to draft Caleb Williams, I said there's too many big wigs on that team. They're not. It is not designed to succeed. You're talking DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, you're talking Cole Kmet, you're talking all of these big names that want to be ball hawks. Okay. And what have the Bears done? First off, I told everybody that, well, before he got injured, JJ McCarthy was the best quarterback in that draft until he got his knee injury. Caleb Williams, it's a different game speed. I seen him perform against some of the better schools in college that play of a more of a pro style game. And he struggled, man. He
Well,
struggled against, the cover 2 defenses and the bigger defenses that were faster. And I knew that that was going to be an issue, but the Colts beat them yesterday, 21-16. And now the Bears have only won 1 game. And here is why I'm going to mention that, because on the other side, you go to the AFC North, and Justin Fields is sitting at 3-0 with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
okay. With Caleb Williams, I'm not going to put yesterday's loss on him. I understand he had the turnovers, but until that offense starts utilizing DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson the way they should be utilizing them, stop all this trying to throw the ball three out of 4 times.
And I told you
This is going
right
to
now,
continue to happen. You're putting all the pressure on a rookie quarterback. You're putting all the expectations on a rookie quarterback without supplementing using the running game. And
I just don't. I think that
brought
if
in
I'm
DeAndre Swift for a reason. Utilize them.
yes, but here's my ticket: is if I am Jerry Jones, I am calling Chicago about either Rayshawn or Khalil.
Give me Khalil Herbert all day. Absolutely.
I think that's the move for me. That's the move. It's not bringing in, any of these other. You look at what the Bears do, and the Bears really rely more on Swift and Rayshawn Jones. So if I am Jerry Jones, Cowboy fans, tweet it out. You heard it here first at Total Apex. The Cowboys need to make a run at Khalil Herbert. He would not only be the quickest back on the team, but behind that offensive line, he could easily become the next Kyron Williams in Dallas. And I'm calling it now. And everybody's going, oh, you're crazy as hell. No. Last year when Kyron Williams went off, it was behind a good offensive, not a great, but a good offensive line with the Rams. Now you put somebody as explosive as Khalil Herbert in the backfield in Dallas. Oh man.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing about Dallas. Turns out they miss Kellen Moore a lot more than what they thought they were going to, because that offense isn't operating very well under Mike McCarthy.
Yes, I agree with Andrew Kim too. Like, yes, that offensive line is more of an issue. And here's the thing, and Tommy, if I'm wrong, correct me, but Chicago spent all their money trying to build offensive weaponry instead of solidifying that offensive line. So Caleb Williams doesn't have time to scratch his rear end
Yeah,
before he's a defender in his face.
and I'm not sure why they brought in and paid Gerald Everett when they're not going to utilize him at tight end. I mean, especially when they already had Cole Kmet. What was the point in bringing in Everett when they, like you said, they should have used that money to fortify the interior of their offensive line?
Yes, absolutely. And but yeah, the Bears are a disaster. I like I said, they've got some key players, but Chicago is doing what Chicago does. They load up on players, marquee players, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift. Come visit Soldier Field in Chicago
Drafted
to
Rome
see us at our.
Drafted.
Exactly. It's all about the name. But I'm sorry, Keenan Allen this will probably be a one and done season for him because he will be damned at this point in his career. And I hate to say it, but Tommy, I can honestly see him taking a pay cut.
He's got to stay healthy.
To go somewhere to Kansas City.
He's got to stay healthy. I mean, these constant hamstring injuries he has are almost chronic at this point. I mean, he's had them for years. So going and getting him in the offseason doesn't do you any favors whenever he's going to miss 4 or 5 games during the season.
And Lawson Turner hit the nail on the head. I think they could have gone with a big offensive lineman instead of Roma Dunze. I mean, you bring in, and I know Dunze's got the rookie and all of this, but you already had DJ Moore. You already had Keenan Allen. Why did you have to go out and get another wide receiver instead of buying some beef for the line? You know what I mean?
It's like you just said. Keenan Allen may only be there for a year. So to pair Odunze with DJ Moore for the future is a good call. The problem was when at the point they were picking, you're not going to take an interior lineman there. And that's what they need is an interior lineman. They drafted a tackle last season, and he's been great for them. They need interior linemen. And you're not going to take an interior lineman at number 8.
So I think the Bears are done this year. I could see them finishing maybe at the 500 mark, but not much more than that. The Chargers, speaking of the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields comes out again and leads the Steelers to a much-needed win, again, to stay undefeated. Mike Tomlin is back on the bounce back. But for me, here's the ticket: is I absolutely love the coaching job that Jim Harbaugh is doing in Chargers country out there.
Of course, you would.
Well, but you think about it. He went to his brother's team and he got J.K. Dobbins, who
that was the key.
That was the key. Yes,
the key to
and
that
then
team is see J.K. Dobbins in a Gus Edwards who's reprising his role behind J.K. Dobbins.
Exactly. And then you toss in the fact.
Yep. You never want
Harbaugh hit
your
gold.
lead back. You want J.K. Dobbins to be that lead back.
Yep. But Harbaugh hit gold. This is the ticket above all of them. Harbaugh hit gold drafting Brock Bowers. That's the end.
Draft Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is with Vegas.
That's right. I'm sorry. Wrong team. But look, there's too much. You got to admit, I've been doing a lot of back end work here. So Ladd McConkey is who I was referring to. Yeah. But I think he hit gold with that. I think that he has a potential to become a star in this league, but he's got Justin Herbert. The defense,
stay healthy with that ankle, though.
Yes,
absolutely. With that ankle, they're done.
But at the end of the day, the Steelers are now sitting at 3-0, and that's all that matters. The Dolphins. Look, we got to see Javon Hollins, bare ass in the game, and there's no other way to say it.
Yeah, let's not go.
That was So, but look, the Dolphins got exposed, and the Seahawks. Another shock for me. I don't know for you, but another shocking. They are undefeated on the year. They're sitting
That
at 3-0, and
doesn't necessarily shock me. You knew what they were going to get defensively by the coach that they brought in. So you knew Mike McDonald was going to bring with him a good defense. Offensively, you knew what they had on the outside with DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett. Now they're also utilizing Noah Fant at tight end to go along with the two-headed monster at running back. Now, I know Kenneth Walker has been injured the last couple weeks, but once he comes back, they're going to be even more dangerous. We're kind of going back to Chicago here. Could have moved back and drafted an offensive lineman. I get that, but at the same time, you're not in most drafts, you don't take an interior lineman in the first round unless he's just special. And I don't think there was any special interior.
Joe Alt was it. Joe Alt, and he's an outside.
And he's an outside guy, right? And he was taken before they picked. So again, with the Bears, their issue is interior. It's not on the perimeter lineman. It's their interior guys.
You know what though? All that matters is that the return of the red rifle. Andy Dalton started yesterday for the Panthers and led them to a 36-22 win over the Vegas Raiders. Now, I am not on the hype train at all. I think that it was just the fact that Andy Dalton come out and did what Andy Dalton. I still think he is more of a, and I always use this, but in essence, this is exactly what he is. I refer him to Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's sort of that veteran presence that any team can really count on to get a much needed win. Like that's what Fitzmagic did. But at the end of the day, Andy Dalton finished the game with more TDs in that game thrown than I think the Panthers have in the past year. And that's Deontay Johnson had himself a decent game, but I'm not believing the hype there. Two injury riddled teams. The Rams were able to get it done again against the 49ers, 27-24. But I want to take a second on these Niners because I'm in the boat with Dallas here. I'm throwing the red alarm here. These injuries are piling up in San Fran, and yes, I know you're going to be getting CMC back, but that defense has also got a lot of injuries, and they've been exposed without their marquee players. They're sitting at 1-2, and Tommy, what do you think? Do you think that this is the fall from grace that, like Brock Purdy's finally out of his, highlights and stuff, and we're about to see really what the Niners are capable of?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we saw last year what happened whenever Deebo Samuel was hurt. Deebo Samuel's hurt again right now. Wait until he comes back. They'll continue to be the best roster in the NFL then. I mean, they kind of got surprised late in that game yesterday by the Rams. I mean, they were winning the majority of that game, and Jawan Jennings had a heck of a game, by the way. But they kind of got surprised late in that game. Tutu Atwell had a really good game for the LA, but you're not really going to expect that, especially with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua down the way that they were. But I don't see San Francisco as this kind of downtrodden, team. I think that they, when healthy, have the best roster in the NFL. And once Debo comes back, once CMC comes back, I think they'll be fine.
I think so. The Cardinals put up a fight against the Lions, but still fell 20-13. And then again, I'm bringing this up. The Chiefs outlasted Atlanta 22-17. But again, this game, Tommy, ended in controversy.
Yeah.
I don't care. People are going to say, "Oh, you're just a Kansas City Chiefs hater." No, I'm not. You look at the last two games, and the Chiefs have won on BS calls by refs. Like that should have been a pass interference against the defense on Kyle Pitts in the end zone, and it was not called, and that cost them the game. I am not believing the hype with this Chiefs team. They have won 2 games out of 3 due to controversy. That
Well,
is not that don't cut it for me.
let's be real here with Kansas City. Hollywood Brown, who they brought in the offseason, gone for the year. Not even going to play a snap for them. Isaiah Pacheco, their running back,
Done.
with a broken leg. Not going to get him back. So they're going to rely on a close to 35-year-old Travis Kelce,
Yep.
who has looked old the last couple weeks. He's looked old.
Yes.
Hasn't been good.
Well, Taylor took his Swift.
Taylor
took his Swift out of him. Like he's
he's
transitioned into the dad life now. He's got,
and then they've utilized a guy in Juju Smith-Schuster who hasn't been good since his second season in Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
And
then I think the only valuable asset that they have right now, and I still believe that he's going to be a stud, and that's Xavier Worthy. I'm not sold on. Yeah.
Those are the two.
And Rashee Rice it could be facing suspension by the end of the year.
It could be. I mean, you're looking mid-season. He could be facing an 8-game suspension.
Yes, so, and then they're screwed.
Yeah. Then they're
and the defense. I want to reiterate. I called this at the beginning of the season. I told people Kansas City's defense is not going to be as dominant as it was last year. They lost L'Jarius Sneed. They lost too many people. And yes, they're still good, but they ain't great.
Right.
And but I'm not sold on the Chiefs. I'm not a Chiefs hater.
The good thing for them is that in that division,
yeah,
they don't have much competition. You're able to say the Chargers, but again, the Chargers on defense, Joey Bosa always hurt. I mean, left the game yesterday because his hip was acting up again. You got questions at running back because J.K. Dobbins, how is the Achilles going to continue to hold up throughout the entire year? At quarterback, how's Justin Herbert's ankle gonna respond? Because he re-aggravated it again yesterday. At wide receiver, Josh Palmer was out again yesterday. He's always hurt. Quentin Johnston has had a good start to the year, but if you look at what he did last year, he was terrible. So again,
I don't think that there's a team in that division that's going to even make a run at the Chiefs.
So,
and I think that's the issue. But like, if you look at
in that division, all the Chiefs have to do is just make the playoffs, and then they can kind of sit back and hope that they can do what they did last year. Because in the regular season last year they weren't good, and then all of a sudden, the
Mahomes magic. That's what they call it, Mahomes magic. But I seriously think that this is the year that they run into a buzzsaw, bro. I mean,
with who though?
So I'm gonna end the weeks on. So tonight we have the Jags and the Bills, and they're gonna do a doubleheader. It's also Commanders Bengals. I am calling red alert. The Bengals need to come out and dominate that game. This is it for. I mean, I know that their self-confidence has to be low as hell because they got robbed in Kansas City. They got robbed. And now they need to come out and bounce back. And I again, it's red alert for the Jags. The Jags are 1-2 on the year. They've got some talented players, but again, you're playing Josh Allen and he's 2-0. I told people, you take away Stephon Diggs, you take away Gabriel Davis, that's fine. But he is really, really getting Johnny Wilson involved. And that's a 6'8" wide receiver from Florida State, if I'm pronouncing his name right. I think it's Johnny Wilson.
Johnny Wilson's with Philadelphia.
Well, which one is the one that they got? The big boy.
They have Khalil Shakur there. Keon Coleman.
That's it. Keon Coleman. I knew it was one of those Florida State boys. But at the end of the day, and again, defensively, the Bills have not been the greatest, but they're getting it done. So, but I'm done with the NFL. I do want to close on this. Tommy, out of all of the teams, what's your one shock to start the season?
The shocker to start the season.
Yeah.
How bad the Browns have looked? Honestly, the Browns have looked terrible. I was expecting the Browns to be kind of a fringe playoff team. They look like one of the worst teams.
Whoa. And I'm going to call it now. As an Ohioan, I am hoping and praying that Deshaun gets suspended, so then that way the Browns can go ahead and void that contract and get somebody in there that wants to play ball, because he does not want to play ball. And with them weapons,
if he continues to look this bad, they're going to have to go to Jameis Winston.
Yeah, and then we're going to have to make sure that we score enough touchdowns to outdo the interceptions, because he's on a 2-to-1 ratio. He throws 2 interceptions for every touchdown. So, and we don't have Nick Chubb back yet. So, but there's optimism in Cleveland. I'm not to that point yet. But I think for me, I think there's a good one and a bad one. I think the good one is what the Minnesota Vikings have done and the Saints have done. Now, there's not a lot of love for the Saints, but I pumped the brakes a little on the Saints because of Derek Carr.
They looked really bad yesterday.
Yes. So, like I said, it's a hit and miss with Derek Carr, but the Vikings, they're looking good on all levels. And then my shocker, and I know they're without their star quarterback, but the Dolphins, I think they're done.
Yeah, Dolphins are toast. I don't think Tua should be coming back. Period. I mean,
no.
That wasn't even a big hit he took.
No, it wasn't. It was just the way his head hit the turf. I mean, like he hit, his head went in, and
that was the whole point of the new helmet he went to.
Yep.
Was to keep that from happening, and it still happened.
Yep.
Another big shocker is the Steelers. Honestly, I did not think the Steelers would be any good. Now, caveat there, I didn't think they would be any good with Russell Wilson. Russ hadn't played, and Justin Fields has proven to be what Pittsburgh has needed. Mm-hmm. So, I think Pittsburgh has really been a big surprise this year.
Yeah. All right, switching from Sunday football to what happened on Saturday. Tommy, we had a lot of stuff going on in the world of college. First off, the number 1 team in the country, Arch Manning, did not look that good. I got to say, he did not look that good, and I think that Ewers' job is secure, but they did roll ULM.
Ewers was securing his job anyways. He's a Heisman front runner. There was no way that Steve Sarkisian was going to bench Quinn Ewers, even if Arch Manning. He even said it prior to the game. If Arch Manning comes out and goes 50 for 500 yards, we're still going back to Quinn Ewers whenever he's healthy.
There you go. 51-3 ULM. Okay. In a shocker that come down, the first half, I was not impressed with Ohio State. I think Marshall actually shocked them a little. They marched down the field the first series of the game, and that Stone dude from Marshall, I forget his name, the quarterback, Stone Earl. Yep. He was proven. I think Ohio State came in there a little complacent, and they got tore up that first drive. But the Buckeyes did pull it out 49-14. Georgia Southern got their doors blown off by Ole Miss. I love this Ole Miss team, Tommy. I know they're in the SEC, but my problem is Lane Kiffin.
Let's see them play somebody, because that running game's not pulled up.
No, it's not. Your Vols finished the game 25-15 against Oklahoma. But here's my question to you: are you believing the hype, or are you dreading having to play Alabama? And I know they play Georgia, but I'm not worried about Georgia. I don't think Georgia's as good as what people think that they are. They struggled against Kentucky, and I can guarantee you that Kentucky is way, way less talented than what this Tennessee team is.
With Tennessee, everybody knew what they could be offensively. They're showing what they can be defensively also. They have a top 5 defense in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They had not let up a touchdown in 19 quarters until late in the fourth quarter the other night.
Yep.
They this was dating back to last season. The last touchdown they had led up prior to late in the fourth quarter the other night was against Vanderbilt last season. That was the last defense. That was the last touchdown.
Now they also have to take into consideration that the level of competition for Tennessee too hasn't been all that great. So they're sort of in the same boat as Ole Miss. You know, yes, they're putting up gaudy numbers, but
they made Jackson Arnold look so bad the other night that Oklahoma benched him.
Well,
Oklahoma
and like I said, Oklahoma
benched
I'm not
their
sold on Oklahoma.
5-star quarterback because he looked so bad the other night.
Yeah. I'm not sold on Oklahoma either. I think Oklahoma made the wrong move moving to the SEC. They are not an SEC team. If I was Oklahoma, I would have moved to the ACC because the SEC is just too fast. I'm gonna be real.
They should have stayed. What they should have done is they should have stayed in the Big 12. They should have continued to dominate the Big 12 and go to the playoffs every year. Now in the SEC,
yep.
they're going to be a middle of the pack school, yep. 7th, 8th, 9th every year because they're going to consistently be behind Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU. That right there is 6. Then you throw in teams like Missouri who can sneak up, who have been good the last couple of years. A&M is up and down. Florida is going to come back at some point. Yep. I mean, not this year, obviously, but at some point in the next couple of years.
I'm not even upset with Florida, though. If there's one team in the country that I'm not upset with, it's Florida. They've got the toughest schedule probably in college football history, and I am not even kidding. I don't expect them to win. If they win 5 games, if I'm a Gator fan, if I could squeak out 5 wins, that's a damn win for the season for me, considering how many ranked teams and tough opponents that they're playing.
Pull up their schedule right now and tell me what games you think they're going to win.
It ain't going to happen, I'm telling you, but I'm being optimistic because their offense is garbage. Their offense is garbage. They just about lost to Mississippi State.
They may beat Florida State at the end of the season because Florida State's terrible also.
Yeah.
But outside of that Florida State game, there may be another win in there. They're going to lose this week to UCF. Ooh. Central Florida's going to beat Florida this week.
Oh,
KJ Jefferson.
But are you believing?
And Kobe Hudson, and RJ Harvey, and Penny Boone are going to put it on them.
Okay. Well, I personally, is the U back? They're the
only team in the ACC. Of course they are. Of course, they're going to make the playoffs because.
Do you like their odds against a team like Alabama, Georgia, even the Buckeyes? Do you think that they have the potential to win it all, or do you think that they're going to get in and get busted? Like,
what's going to happen is they're going to run through the ACC because the ACC has no other viable competitive teams outside of Clemson. And Clemson got absolutely destroyed by Georgia the first game of the season. So Clemson has proven that they can put up big points against App State, against NC State, NC State was thought to be a decent team coming into the season. They've been terrible. So Clemson has proven that they can beat those kind of below average to average teams.
Mm-hmm.
They can't beat good ones. So whenever Clemson and Miami face off, I think Miami is just going to outscore them because Cam Ward is on a trajectory to win the Heisman this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think he will too. But you know what team my heart goes out to? Them poor boys from Kent State. They played Tennessee last week, got blown out like 60-something to nothing.
71.
Then they turned around and had to go to Penn State this week and got blew out. Like, this team is allowing defenses to score over 50 points a game. Like, I'm just saying.
I got something for you whenever it comes to them. I sent my dad a stat the other day. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'm going to read it to you. Hold on one second here.
But my shocker is my Michigan boys. You know what? I placed a bet on them.
Here you go. The Kent State Ride to Hell tour has concluded. Their record is 0-4 against Pitt, St. Francis, PA, which is an FCS school, Tennessee, and Penn State. They were outscored 205-41 in those four games. Opponents' total offense 2,427 total yards to their 671 total yards. All of this for Kent State earned them just over $4 million for their athletic department.
Now, on top of that, wasn't Kent State the team that lost their starter, their backup, and their third string quarterback all in one game, wasn't it?
Well, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Their starting quarterback on Saturday got knocked out on the second play. But let's be real, he was terrible anyways. He's not. None of them are any good. I think for the entire game they threw for like 18 yards or something crazy low like that. Kent State's terrible. They are 134 out of 134 in the FBS level. They're going to go 0-12. They won what was it, one game last year, and that was towards the beginning of the year, and have lost every game since. So they're going to go 0-12 this year. They have a slight chance at some point to beat a team like Akron, but that's going to be about it.
Well, all right. So I have to say this because, Tommy, as you know, I'm a Michigan fan. I bet against them. I bet against them. I thought USC was going to go into the big house and blow the doors off of them after seeing how they performed. Yes, they walked away with the win against Arkansas State, but that game should not have been that close. And I'm like, I know USC has more play, but I lost that bet because Michigan came out and was able to secure a 3-point win against the 11th ranked team in the country. And I think benching the starter and putting Orgy in was the best move that Sharon Moore made. That defense seemed to be a little bit more scrappy in that game, and I was impressed with that win. Yeah. I mean, for real.
I was a guest on my good friend SC Romero's podcast on Saturday morning. We discussed this game, and I had told him that in order for Michigan to win this game, they're going to have to go with the read option. They're going to have to utilize Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards in a capacity that they hadn't before going into this game. Mm-hmm. And then they're probably going to have to score a defensive touchdown in order to win. Guess what? All that happened. They utilized Mullings, they utilized Edwards, they utilized the run option with Orgy, and then they had to have a defensive touchdown to win the game. Will Johnson had a pick six middle of that game, and that ended up being the winning score. So
best defensive back in the country.
So it's hard to go in. It's hard to go into the big house and win. Mm-hmm. Texas did it. Texas did it because Texas is special. Texas is special this year. A team like USC did not have the margin of error that Texas has. So it's much more difficult for a third. USC is not a second tier team.
So here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do, because I ain't even going to lie to the audience. I've been drinking coffee all morning, and I got to take a quick step away. But, Tommy, I'm going to take you full screen, and I want you to discuss 3 games that shocked you the most, because I know one was the BYU game, and then I will be right back.
Okay. Yeah. Let's kind of discuss the BYU and Kansas State game. Last week, Kansas State really dominated Arizona in the second half of that game and won 31-7. So you were kind of, everybody was kind of expecting Kansas State to continue their momentum and put away a decent BYU team, decent but not great BYU team. That obviously did not happen. K-State couldn't throw the ball. Avery Johnson was very limited with what he was able to do offensively for Kansas State, and they did not get DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards involved early enough in that game to be able to make it a game early. So BYU kind of ran away with it. BYU is they're a solid, not great team. But
sorry about that.
In that Big 12, BYU has proven that they're able to compete. So they've remained undefeated.
Was it the throwback jerseys? That's all I need to know. I think it was the throwback jerseys that, me personally, I thought they were fire.
Yeah.
I think it was the throwback jerseys.
But their quarterback Retzlaff is not turning the ball over the way he did last year. So BYU, if they can control the ball the way that they did on Saturday, if they can play defense and take away the other team's best players the way that they did on Saturday, they're going to be able to compete the rest of the season. Now, another surprise was NIU kind of not laying an egg, but falling back to earth against Buffalo on Saturday. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, they beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame in South Bend, and that was considered one of the biggest upsets of the season. Okay. Yeah. Then they kind of have a fall back to earth moment this past week against Buffalo, and they lose in overtime, 23-20. Okay. These MAC schools, everybody has to understand that in a one-game setting, you're able to play with the big boys sometimes. Once you get past that one-game setting, now all of a sudden you just are who you are, right? So these MAC schools can jump up and bite somebody at times. Take this back to, 15 years ago, whenever App State went into the Big House and beat Michigan. Okay?
I was actually going to use something more recent.
Take this back to 5 or 6 years ago, whenever Georgia State went into Knoxville and beat Tennessee inside Neyland Stadium. The very next week, they dropped off a cliff.
Yep. Okay. What about what Toledo did to Mississippi State last weekend?
Mississippi State. Yep. Well, that's kind of on a smaller level. Mississippi State's not very good,
but they're still an SEC school.
They're still an SEC school, but at this point, with them, it's almost like beating Vanderbilt from the last couple of years. It's just, it is what it is. But going into these big program schools like Michigan, like Tennessee, like Notre Dame, you may be able to do it one time, but then that high kind of wears off and you fall back down to earth, just the way NIU did on Saturday. Okay.
But here's my thing: is that was a $1.5 million loss for Notre Dame.
They got paid, and they kind of ruined Notre Dame's season a little bit, which I'm okay with because I don't like Notre Dame anyways. But
on the flip side of that, I'm going to throw in that third team that shocked me, and I am calling it an upset. And that was SMU putting the boots to the Horned Frogs, 66-42.
What'd they get? Didn't they get like 3 non-offensive touchdowns? I know they had an interception return for a touchdown. They had a punt return for a touchdown, and didn't they also have a fumble recovery for a touchdown?
Yep. So, and then when you were talking about that BYU game, I think you overlooked the fact that we saw probably the greatest punt return in college football history. Like, that was ridiculous. Like, I was like, they are not about to take that daggone thing. That they're going to the house.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. Kansas State just got, they just got torched.
And we almost had another major upset on Saturday. Vanderbilt went into Missouri and took that game into overtime and missed an overtime field goal to lose that game 23-20.
I'm not sold on Missouri. I think honest to God, I thought BC was going to do it. And I'm sorry, Missouri is not the number. Yeah,
30-27.
30-27. But I'm not believing that hype 1 minute. I like what Utah is doing, even though they don't have Cam Rising back. They
That
were
was a
able
big
to,
win going into Stillwater and winning
yes,
with Cam
that
Rising.
was that was a big win. And the thing is that Isaac Nelson did his thing. Like he ain't no Cam Rising, but Cam Rising comes back. I think that
Say his
like
name again. Who?
Cam Rising,
No. Who'd you say took his place?
Isaac Nelson,
Isaac Wilson. It's
Wilson. I'm sorry.
Zach Wilson's brother.
Okay, yeah, my fault. But I
I'm just
I'm
busting
just
your
there's
balls.
a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams out here that are like I'm sorry, but like when you look at what SMU did, and here's another shocker, and I don't care. Shout out to one of our good friends, Dr. Antonio Suey. The Razorbacks hold the Tigers of Auburn to 14 points and are able to walk out with a 24-14. But now Arkansas has to go.
Wasn't that game at Jordan Hare?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why, but and you talk about these big schools getting beat by littler schools. That happened exactly to Memphis. That was, you were on that kick with Memphis there for a little bit, but like this could be a borderline, playoff team.
Yeah.
And
Going to
they
Annapolis
got
and losing Navy the way they did.
steamrolled by the midshipmen.
Mhm.
They got steamrolled. And I'm like, dang. And so then you throw in some of these other schools like, okay, so I'm not sold on the Buffaloes of Colorado.
I'm going to give you one team to really look out for if they can get past this week. If they get past this week, their schedule completely sets them up to make a playoff run. That is Washington State. They have Boise State this week. If they can beat Boise State, their hardest games the rest of the season are Fresno State and Oregon State. They could legitimately go undefeated if they beat Boise State this weekend.
So what other undefeated team? I mean, like there was some talk there, obviously, before Texas Tech wallywhopped them, but North Texas was a team that a lot of people were high on, a lot of offensive firepower. Now SMU's back in the conversations after what they did to TCU. But I personally, there's a couple teams that I call BS on, and we haven't really mentioned it because we're over that hour mark, so we're going to get this thing wrapped up here. But we're not even talking about the fact that Illinois pulled the upset against Nebraska. Like Dylan Raiola had a little bit of slap back to reality type of game, and I'm not sold on some of these Big Ten teams. I'm sorry, I'm not sold on Penn State. And no, everybody in the country knows that this is a $20 million championship team that the Ohio State Buckeyes have paid for. You heard me right. They paid for it.
Let's be real here. Ohio State is paying a lot of money for their players in NIL.
Yeah.
Most Power 4 schools are doing the same thing. Most are. Okay? Now, it may not be to the same level Ohio State is with the what was it, $22 million or whatever value they have. But I mean, you look at schools like Tennessee, who are reportedly paying Nico Iamaleava over $8 million. You look at schools like,
how much is Arch Manning making?
Like Texas. Texas paid a ton of money to get guys like Matthew Golden and Silas Bolden and Isaiah Bond and Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. I mean, Quinn Ewers left high school early. He reclassified after his junior year to go to Ohio State simply so he could cash out on an NIL deal worth $1 million at Ohio State. After his freshman year, he immediately transfers to Texas. How much is Texas paying him?
I ain't got a clue.
Exactly. So there's
but my problem is
that haven't even been reported. So yes, all of these schools are paying money. Now, as far as Penn State goes, Penn State has they have a good running game. they have no weapons on the outside. So once they come across a team like Michigan who can stop the run, once they come across a team like Ohio State who can stop the run, are they going to be able to make plays on the outside to be able to beat them?
Well, my problem with Ohio State is even though they won the game in convention fashion, they let a MAC school like Marshall put 14 on them. Like, I'm sorry that when you look at the big picture. So, and here's what I'm telling everybody is Ryan Day paid over $20 million to beat the Michigan Wolverines this year. That's what it boils down to. You bring in Quinshawn Judkins, you got Jeremiah Smith, you bring in Will Howard, you bring in all of these people just to beat the Wolverines because you couldn't do it. And I personally, and then you bring in Chip Kelly to run the offense, pay him a buttload of money, the highest paid offensive coordinator in the country. And I'm just saying, I am going to laugh so hard if Michigan beats Ohio State, even by a small margin.
Is Michigan going to be able to put up the points needed in order to beat Ohio State? That's the question.
I think they are because
they weren't able to against Texas.
But you know what?
Ohio State and Texas are very, very similar rosters. Very similar rosters.
First off, Texas.
You look at the wide receivers. You look at the wide receivers and running backs that both teams had, or both things. I mean, obviously Texas doesn't have C.J. Baxter.
All I will say is that what is the one flaw of that Buckeyes team? They cannot stop the run. Like, you just let a Stone Earl Mac quarterback dominate you. And yes, they lost, but he still rushed for over 100 yards as a quarterback. And I'm telling you, last year,
he had 23 yards.
Arthur didn't have,
He had 23 yards rushing.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did. As a team, they only had 125.
But that's a MAC school. The offensive line is not even comparable to what Michigan's bringing in. And here's my thing is that I think that the Buckeyes run defense is not as good as what people think. I think the secondary is a little on the sketchy side. Their defense is the weak. Now, offensively, they got one of the most electric offenses in the country. But we also have one of the best, if not the best, defensive backs in the country with Will Johnson. And I called it last year with Marvin Harris.
Problem is Michigan has no ability to throw the ball.
That's the problem.
No ability to throw the ball whatsoever, and that's what burned them against Texas. The inability to be able to throw the ball is what's going to get them beat against Ohio State. I know you don't want to agree with it. I
agree with you. I think that this is, but you got to give me credit though, because as much as I love my Michigan boys, I called it at the beginning of the year. I could easily see us dropping 3 to 4 games. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I already said, I told you a long time ago, I knew we was going to get our butts whooped by Texas. I could say we got a butt whooping coming from Oregon. We got to travel to Oregon.
And in reality, they were pretty lucky to win that game on Saturday. But
here's my problem:
Johnson jumping that route and taking that ball back to the house, they don't win that game.
But here's my problem, and if I'm wrong, correct me. But what it boils down to is that Big Ten commissioner screwed the pooch on Michigan and gave us one of the toughest schedules in the country, and then gave Ohio State a cakewalk. I mean, let's be real.
Well, I mean, as far as Michigan scheduling Texas, that's a Michigan problem. That's not a Big Ten commissioner problem.
But outside of that, look at who they scheduled us: Oregon, USC, Washington.
Ohio State has Oregon also.
But do they have USC? Do they have Washington?
They got Penn. They have, let's see, coming up, they have Michigan State, Iowa, at Oregon, Nebraska, at Penn State, Purdue, at Northwestern, Indiana, and then Michigan.
Cakewalk outside of Oregon. Cakewalk.
Oregon.
That is cakewalk. You're telling me that. No, you're telling me.
at Penn State, which is probably going to be a whiteout game.
But it doesn't. Penn State does not have. I don't know why every year everybody gets on this Penn State kick. Okay, Penn State can run the table. When it comes to playing Michigan or Ohio State, they crumble.
Okay,
Iowa is the same way.
Iowa
does not.
Let's go over Michigan's schedule. They got Minnesota at home,
Okay.
at Washington.
Okay, tough.
Who is not last year's Washington, by the way.
It don't matter. They're still tough.
At Illinois,
they're tough.
At the end of the day, it's Illinois. Michigan's going to beat Illinois.
Okay.
Michigan State at home, Oregon at home, so they don't even have to go to Oregon.
Okay, so right there,
at Indiana, who's okay. Northwestern at home, and then they go to Ohio State. Those schedules are very, very
We had 5 games. We had 5 games against top 25 teams.
Well, so does Ohio State. Those schedules are very comparable.
I don't know. I just think, I mean, when you talk about Texas, and then USC, I mean, let's face it. I mean, we played 2 top 25 teams.
Well, the Texas
in a matter of
the Texas thing. The Texas thing was a Michigan problem. That wasn't a Big Ten issue.
Man, I'm all for it, but you know what? I got to give my boys credit. We ain't gonna just sit here and play MAC schools the whole day. But I mean, you think about it. They played Marshall. They played Akron. They played.
That's right.
I'm like, why are we even playing? And then everybody's on this Buckeye kick about. Man, we were averaging 49 points against defenses from the MAC school, dude. Don't get your hopes up. And I'm telling everybody, yes, there is not a team in the Big Ten that's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Ohio State. I'm telling you that now, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it's a $22 million team. But all of that's going to go to waste because even if Ryan Day beats Michigan and makes it to the playoffs, I'm telling you folks right now, you heard it here first. They are not going to beat Ole Miss. They are not going to beat Alabama. They are not going to beat Tennessee. And they definitely, damn sure, are not going to beat Texas.
Well,
Quinn Ewers is going to torch the Buckeye.
The SEC has such depth at the top of the conference with, again, Texas, Georgia, Alabama.
I think Miami closed their doors off.
Missouri. I mean, the SEC literally has 6 schools who could potentially make the college football playoff. 6.
And I'm telling you right now, I the only one, and I hope it comes true because that would deflate the whole season, is I am all in on the Ducks to crack the Bucks. That's what I want.
Yeah, and in reality, the Big Ten has 3 schools who could potentially make Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. That's it.
Yeah. Michigan's not going to make it. They just don't have
Michigan, Illinois, Indiana. I mean,
Nebraska could, if they were to pull some miraculous upset over Ohio State.
Nebraska would have to win out. Nebraska would have to win out in order to make it. Right.
Yeah.
Illinois basically have to win out in order to make it.
Yeah. But that's what it boils down to. And I think that, and as much as I hate to say it, but if Notre Dame wins out, Northern Illinois, loss or not, if they keep blowing teams
which is unfortunate because Notre Dame doesn't play anybody this year. They do have to play Southern Cal. So if Southern Cal beats them, now Southern Cal is another school from the Big Ten who could potentially make it if they win out, but they're going to have to win out.
Yeah. And like I said, I believe full-heartedly that, and again, you mentioned it. I think Washington State could give people some fits.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to, and again,
if Washington State beats Boise, they could make the playoff at 12-0.
Yes. And the other one that I don't know if they are currently undefeated, but the other team that I really, really like is where the hell did they go? I just had them on my screen. I swear to God, because I didn't want to skip over them. Oh, South Alabama.
No, South Alabama's lost twice already, and they got LSU this week.
Maybe it wasn't. Well, who was the team that scored 87?
It was South Alabama.
Okay. All right. That's what it was.
They're able
And
to
then
put up points, but they also give up a lot of points.
I'm sorry, it wasn't South Alabama. It was the Dukes of James Madison. Are they undefeated?
They are undefeated, and they just put up 70 on North Carolina. So yeah, that's
I
another
think
thing.
that could be. And I tell you what, that defense looked stout. They didn't. They went into Chapel Hill.
Yeah, they still gave up 50, but
I don't give a damn. Like, but they're supposed to. I mean, they're not even in a MAC. They're AAC, ain't they?
well, the AAC is a better conference than the MAC, but I think there's Sun Belt.
Sun Belt, something like it don't matter. I mean, but then again, like you said, it goes based on like Clemson is done, Texas A&M is done, uh, LSU. They're not. No, they're not beating Alabama. They're not beating Ole Miss. They're not beating none of them schools. Utah has a chance. They get with that win last week. But again, I love this 12 team, but I think there's going to be some slaughters in that first round.
Well, you're looking at the ACC, which is probably only going to get one team in.
Miami.
Well,
and
yeah,
I
Miami.
love what Miami is going to bring to the table.
And then the Big 12 is probably only going to get one team in, and it's going to be the champion, whether that's Utah, Oklahoma, or Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Arizona, whatever.
Have we actually
Iowa
seen
State,
what the format's going to look
Iowa
like?
State, who's also playing well. BYU's playing well. But then on the outside, so you're probably going to get one team in from both those conferences, and then you got your G5 qualifier, so that's 3. So you have 9. You have 9 more teams who are going to get in, and all 9 are probably going to be from the SEC and Big Ten.
So,
unless a team like Washington State goes undefeated, unless Notre Dame wins out, then you may squeeze those 2 teams in there, but that's really going to be about it.
Yeah. I'm still trying to see. I don't like how they don't. And to me, it should. Yes, I mean everybody wants all the SEC and the Big Ten in there. That's all fine and dandy. But at the same point, it's going to get down to the point where the SEC's just battling each other because it's been proven the Big Ten doesn't have the cojones.
You want the best teams in the best games, right? And so, if the best teams are in one conference, then yeah, give me all the best teams from the one conference, because that's where the best teams
it needs to be split up. Like I think that, me personally, I would love on an Ohio State, and it won't happen because there'll be probably a 1 versus a 4 or something like that. I would love to see Ohio State go up against somebody like Texas or Miami to start the college football. I want to see what these boys are made of, because I'm not looking. It's been like last year. Yes, Michigan did it. Ohio State's done it, but for the most part, historically, the Big Ten has struggled against SEC schools because of speed.
Well, just look at what happened last year in a lot of these bowl games. Tennessee against Iowa. Iowa was thought to have one of the best defenses in the country. They got shut out 35-0.
Look at what Florida State did.
Penn State against Ole Miss last year. Complete destruction. Ole Miss killed them. I'm not really going to throw Florida State in there just because Florida State had a lot of people sitting out in that game, and Georgia had all their players.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Do you believe we've discussed this actually. Outside of the fact that their head coach is Lane Kiffin, are you believing some of the hype with Ole Miss? I mean, do you think that if they were to face like in Alabama, that air offense that they're able to do is going to keep them alive? I mean, I don't think they did play Tennessee this year.
They don't play Tennessee this year. But, I mean, the way Ole Miss is operating, let's go back a couple years. Whenever Tennessee beat Alabama 2 years ago, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That air attack of Tennessee destroyed Alabama. Okay? Killed them. So whenever you have a Heisman caliber type of quarterback, the way Ole Miss does,
Jackson Dart, I love him.
The way you have an All-American type of wide receiver, the way Ole Miss does with Trey Harris, the way you have an All-American caliber tight end, the way Ole Miss does with Caden Prescorn.
Yep. And you're
If
not even talking about what they did in the transfer portal.
right,
They brought in a lot of heavy hit.
yeah,
They put together the top transfer portal class in the country.
yep, defensively, right. I mean, they
Yes.
brought in Walter Nolan, brought in Prince Umanlian. So
Yep.
they brought in good. They brought in Chris Paul, linebacker from was linebacker from
Absolutely.
Oklahoma, I
I
believe.
think that this is a team that could make some,
Linebacker from
but
Arkansas. So he was
yeah,
linebacker from Arkansas. So they literally brought in fortification on their defense, which was a lot of the problem last year. Problem
yeah.
was they lost Quinshawn Judkins, right? Okay, so what did they do?
That's the revenge game that I'm looking for.
What did they do with their running game? They brought back Henry Parrish, who had been there prior to, transferred out to Miami, and then came back. Okay, does Henry Parrish have enough to be able to
I don't think that. Okay, so
provide
I'm
Ole
gonna be
Miss the
real
type
with
of
you.
running game that they're going to need to be able to survive the SEC?
I'm calling it right now. I don't think that there is a defensive backfield in the country that if Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin don't make any dumb calls, hands down, that Ole Miss team is probably the most stout team in the country. Like outside the running back, which you could still get a hit and miss with him, but at the same time, if Ohio State was to play Ole Miss, if I'm Lane Kiffin, I am sticking it to Quinshawn. You wanted to go there, buddy? I got something for you. And I
Yeah.
hope they pull their doors off 49-21, 28-point victory for the Rebels. I would love to see that.
Here's the thing, though. There, Ohio State has such great weapons on the outside that
Yeah.
like Ohio State, Texas, and Tennessee probably have the three best wide receiving rooms in the entire country. Okay,
Hands down.
depth wise, Ole
Yeah.
Miss has one guy with Trey Harris. Everybody else in that room is kind of okay. They're there too, right? They're all right.
But I think the defense
If
for Ole Miss is what's going to get them.
if they can find a way to shut down a Trey Harris,
Yeah.
and make the other guys beat them, that's the goal for any team, right?
But what Buckeye defensive back is going to be able to go one-on-one with fucking Trey Harris? I'll wait.
Igbenosum's pretty good. Igbenosum's is a good corner.
Yeah, but he ain't. I like now. If it was somebody like a Will Johnson, a Travis Hunter, I would say yeah. But when you're talking Trey Harris, like
Sure.
dude is bad. Dude is bad. Trey Harris is one bad man.
And he's a
Like,
big guy too.
yes, he is.
He's a big guy.
That's the thing. So, but I think, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think we've got to, like, really, there's not a lot of, everybody wants to talk about unbeaten teams, but ladies and gentlemen, the pool of unbeatens is dwindling.
It's gonna keep shrinking. I mean,
Yeah, it is, because that SEC's got to battle each other out.
Yeah,
I mean, Alabama's got to play Georgia, Tennessee. I mean, you're talking to heavy hitters. Whoever comes out of that SEC is going to win the national title. That's all there is to it. And it doesn't matter if it's Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, or even if Georgia's able to get it together with Carson Beck.
Texas.
Texas even first year, and it would be the first time since 2004 when Virginia Tech joined the what was it, the ACC, and they won the conference championship. Okay, so
first time since the last time a Power Five, a new team to a Power Five conference had won. Well, the last time a new team to the Power Five conference had won was Virginia Tech back in 2004 when they left the Big East to join the ACC. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, and we could see that with Texas, because I tell you what, I love what Texas is doing. They are, and I'm not saying anything against your Vols or the Alabama or nothing, but look, people, Texas is one bad team. I'm trying to tell you, defensively, offensively, special teams, it don't matter if you put Quinn Ewers on the shelf. They've got Arch Manning coming in. They've got depth. They've got size. They've got speed. And them boys are bad.
Yep.
They are bad. Like that is hands down the best team in the country. Am I overstepping there, Tommy, or am I dead on it?
I wouldn't say hands down. I mean,
Mm.
you have to look at. I mean, I think I think you probably have 5 or 6, maybe 7 teams with Oregon who are legitimate national title contenders, and you could even throw Miami in there. Um,
I think Cam Ward is hands down the best player in the country. Everybody's on
yeah,
Travis Hunter,
I would
but
say,
Cam Ward,
well, let's not forget Ashton Jeanty at Boise State either.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you could even throw Miami in there because the more momentum that they build going into the playoffs, the more. I
And let's
mean,
face it, that ACC is
yeah,
weak,
and the
bro.
ACC is weak, so they're
That
gonna
ACC
continue
is
to rack up
weak.
victories. Okay,
I mean, like I know that they got Clemson.
so
All right,
we're
but
looking at like 8 teams who could potentially win a national title here.
yeah, and
Um,
that's not many considering there's 350 teams.
well,
Now, granted,
that's more,
Power Five,
it's also more than what there's been over the last several years, also because over the last several handful of years at least, you've only been looking at 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 teams who could potentially win a national title.
yeah,
I mean, last year you had 5. You had 5 teams who could have legitimately won a national title last year, with Michigan obviously winning it. Then you had Washington, Texas, Alabama, and Georgia. 5 teams. That was it in the entire country. And before then, over the last several years before then, it was literally just Georgia and Alabama. That
yeah.
was it.
And the way so here are the undefeateds left. So and we got to start wrapping this up. But there's 2 military schools. Army and Navy are both undefeated.
They have to play each other.
And yeah, Duke is undefeated at 4-0, but they're again, I'm not worried about them because I don't think that their schedule is
Duke,
really reflective.
Duke and Illinois are very similar with
Yeah.
that type of situation. Yeah.
Louisville got Notre Dame this weekend.
Hmm.
So that's going to be a slug 'em. Obviously, Miami Pitt Panthers are a team that look, they've already sort of went through that a little bit of a tough part of their schedule. You know what I mean? Like they had a couple rough games, and now they're getting North Carolina this week, and that's going to be a blowout. Pitt's going to blow the doors off of North Carolina. Indiana and
If Desmond
Illinois.
Reed plays, if Desmond Reed
Yeah.
doesn't play, then North Carolina can get him.
The BYU Cougars are a team that I think could sneak in. And they're 4-0, and they just put the boots to K-State.
Hmm.
Iowa State's another one that if they can run the table, you got to remember they don't have to play Oklahoma this year. They don't have to play Texas. They don't. They're gone from the Big 12.
Right.
So that Iowa State has, and the same thing with UCF. Now UCF ain't giving them nobody's giving them credit, but they have an opportunity to run the table.
Yeah,
UCF is
they have
rough.
Florida, and they have Florida this week, I think. Is that
Yes.
this week? Yeah.
Yeah. No, UCF's actually against
maybe
Colorado.
It may be next week then. I know they have Florida coming up at some point. The next couple.
And then a team that a lot of people are slipping on, Liberty. Liberty
plays nobody. Liberty's schedule is so soft that an undefeated season with Hayden Salter is very, very plausible.
Yes, and the thing is that they're building on a damn near undefeated season last year. So there, you know, the fact that they got snubbed last year and didn't even get consideration. I'm just saying, I think that's going to be the team.
In a 4-teamer, they were never going to get in. They were never going to get in a 4-team situation. In a 12-team situation where the highest ranked G5 is going to get in, they have an opportunity now.
Yes, and I think that that's the one. UNLV, I mean, they're undefeated.
Yep. UNLV
Washington State. Yes, they are. But they've got. We'll learn a lot about UNLV this weekend because they got Fresno State, and Fresno State ain't no slouch team. So, but of course you've got Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas, and then the last team. I would love to see both of these get in. Liberty and what James Madison is doing. They were another team last year that damn near ran the table undefeated.
Well, I would say as of right now, your biggest your your biggest opportunities to get in as a G5 school would be teams like UNLV, Boise, Liberty. That really,
I
that
think
really
Pitt.
maybe.
I think Pitt takes that Big East. I
Well,
think Pitt.
it's in the ACC, so
Well, I think Pitt has a chance. Well, so we could see two teams come out of there because if Pitt's only loss is against Miami,
I just don't see it. I just don't see that happening. I mean, you say the same thing about Louisville. I mean, if they're
well,
only,
yeah.
if
I
they're
mean,
only
but
lost,
Notre Dame. I don't know. I think Marcus Freeman's got Notre Dame rolling now. I think that Northern Illinois loss sort of woke them up. I mean, they came out, they dropped a 66 burger on Purdue, turn around. Yeah, it wasn't as impressive, but they put up 28 against Miami of Ohio.
that's nothing.
And no, it's not. That's my problem is there's too much inconsistency. But and again, you talk about Illinois and Indiana, they haven't played nobody.
Right.
So it's going to boil down to
I actually think Indiana could be fairly good. I mean, they have a decent quarterback. They have good weapons. I think Indiana could be looking at an 8-4 type of season.
I think, and you know what, I know it ain't going to happen, but I would love to see a team like BYU, Iowa State, or something like that outside SEC Big Ten win the title this year. And I think that solidifies the fact that this is why we did 12 teams, because now you're actually going to have to play those teams that were undefeated. Like everybody's going to say, oh, well, Alabama's got BYU. I'm not. Look, Alabama's damn good.
Yeah,
but don't take nothing away from
BYU's not on that level. I think BYU. Iowa State is a good offense. Yeah. Iowa State can put the ball around.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe not BYU, and I think UCF is the one that has Trent Dilfer, or is that South Florida?
No, he's at UAB.
Oh, UAB. I knew it was one of those Southern schools.
South Florida has Alex Golish. He was the who's
UCF?
UCF is Gus Malzahn.
That's what it was. Yes. That's he's the old Auburn coach. Yes. So, and they've got, I mean, look, they're coming off of a 35-34 win at TCU. Gus Malzahn has this team looking good. UCF ain't nobody to be playing with, man. Do I think that they've got the talent to beat some of these bigger schools?
I think they do. I mean,
I think they do, man.
AJ Jefferson transferred in from Arkansas.
Yes.
Kobe Hudson's a really good wide receiver. RJ Harvey and Penny Boone are two of the most productive running backs in the country. I think UCF can compete inside the Big 12.
All right. So who is your standout team outside of your Power Fives? Well, you can't even say outside of your traditional playoff team. No Ohio State, Texas, Alabama. You know where I'm going with that.
Right.
Who is the one team that you think could make the deepest run and challenge that Alabama, Texas?
Well, I've already kind of laid out the 8 teams I think who have the ability to win a national title. Outside of those teams, you're probably looking at somebody like, if they can get in an Iowa State, because they can put up points. They've already beaten Iowa this year. You're looking at somebody like a Louisville. Louisville can put up points if they can get in. I don't think Clemson has the ability to do it. I don't. I saw them play against Georgia. They had no offensive ability.
No.
So, and then outside of that, I think Boise State can cause problems because they can run the ball. Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country, maybe even the best overall player in the country.
But Boise State's not even undefeated right now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as they're the highest ranked G5 school, they're going to get in. So, and that doesn't matter.
I think the team that I think people really need to watch is Navy. Navy's got probably one of the most lethal rushing attacks.
They have a tough schedule coming up. I mean,
they just beat Memphis.
Yeah.
And like I said, Memphis was a hard team. I know Florida State ain't nothing to brag about, but I mean, Memphis sort of came into the
Yeah.
season with some hopes of making the playoffs,
You can,
and that's out the door.
you also have to look at it this way. Was that kind of a letdown game for Memphis after the Florida State win? So
Oh yeah,
I mean, Navy can run the ball. Can they do it against good teams though? Can they do it against really good? I mean, like, and not only that, are they going to be able to put up enough points to beat teams like South Florida? They have to play South Florida.
all right. So here's the team that I'm sort of saying may shock some people, and me and you touched on this earlier, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I really like what UNLV is doing. I think that that's a team that people are not taking serious, and
Matthew Sluka is a good dual threat quarterback, and they have a really good wide receiver with Ricky White. Yeah, I think UNLV can cause some problems.
I think that that's because there's not a whole lot of dual threats in the country, like legit dual threat quarterbacks in the country. And that is exactly what he is. Matt Sluka is a dual threat.
Yeah. See, but again, are they going to be able to stop teams like Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Miami, Oregon? That's the issue.
Well, see, but
they going to be able to stop them, because otherwise they're just going to have to completely outscore these teams. I don't know if they can do that.
I personally, if they continue to play like they have been playing, there are two teams in the SEC that I think have the most potential to win it all. Number one is your Tennessee Volunteers. If they had a tough game this week against Oklahoma, but it's going to end up piling up on Tennessee because they have Alabama. They have Georgia.
That's really about it, though. We have Alabama and Georgia left, and that's really about it.
If they can make it through that, then but on the flip side of that, Ole Miss. And I would love for either one of those two teams to win it because they haven't won it in forever.
Yeah, last time one was 98. It's been 26 years.
Exactly. So I'm all for somebody new picking it up. Now, I love what Alabama's been able to do, but they are too reliant on that 17-year-old wide receiver.
Ryan Williams, yeah.
Yeah, they are way too dependent upon him. Now, don't get me wrong, the boy is electric. But if I'm Tennessee,
well, they're way too reliant on the deep ball. That's the only pass Jalen Milroe can complete.
Yeah, he can't complete slants to save his butt.
He's not able to complete timing routes. He can't complete.
In the running game, I'm not impressed with the running game. Like, for real, I'm not impressed with Alabama's running game.
Yeah, I mean, they have two really good running backs, but the problem is that, again, they're too reliant on Jalen Milroe.
Yep, and I think that the offensive line ain't all that what it's cracked up to be. It's not an offensive line of years gone by.
Their best offensive lineman has also been hurt for start the season. Once Caden Proctor comes back, I think they'll be okay.
All right, Tommy. Well, we're going to close this out, but you got any other final thoughts before we close it out?
No, just keep an eye up on the websites for all the bets information, all the fantasy information, because we do individual DFS game articles for the NFL games. So those will be coming out towards the end of the week. Game previews for both college and NFL will be up on the Total Apex Sports website. Go check those out. Go check out Total Apex Sports Bets for your betting information. Go check out Total Apex Fantasy Sports. And then outside of that, go check out the Total Apex Entertainment, Total Apex Gaming, and Total Apex Herald.
Love it, man. Look, and at the end of the day, you guys, remember, respect the hustle. We out here grinding so you don't have to. There's been a lot of people been missing us, but we're back. So, Tommy, later this week, we will be doing a DFS show for football. We will be doing some betting shows for NFL and college. And I think this week we've got some more stuff lined up for MLB and some hockey and some other things. So you guys stay tuned. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure that you drop us a comment and let us know what you guys think. Again, I'm Dusty. This is Tommy. But for right now, we're out.